Welcome to Aligned and Abundant, the podcast where authenticity meets practicality, compassion, alignment, and abundance. I'm your host, Christine Marcario, and I help you slow down, become mindful, improve your mental and emotional health, and live life on your highest timeline. Together, we'll talk strategy, life lessons, and share inspiring stories of people who have overcome obstacles, grown through their pain, and risen above adversity. If you are looking for divine inspiration, rooted in love and light, paired with practical tools and encouragement, you are in the right place at the right time. From one heart to another, you are an amazing and divine soul with a purpose. Now take my hand and let's walk this path together. Today I'm joined by a beautiful guest, Nikki Linarello, a medium, intuitive reader, and Reiki practitioner who serves as a bridge between the physical world and the spirit realm. Nikki has a natural sensitivity to intuitive guidance and communication from crossed over loved ones, angels, and personal guides. Through her work, she helps people understand their journey, reconnect with themselves, and uncover the deeper meaning behind life's experiences. Her readings and energy work are guided by compassion, integrity, and a deep respect for the unseen. She believes that we are all unique pillars of light, deeply and profoundly loved. In this conversation, Nikki shares her own awakening story, the angelic experiences that opened her gifts, and the powerful rise of divine feminine energy that so many of us are feeling right now. We also explore the collective timeline shifts unfolding as we move toward 2026, the meaning of returning to the womb of the Great Mother, ancestral healing, and what truly happens during Reiki sessions and intuitive readings. If you've been craving clarity, spiritual expansion, or a deeper connection to your own gifts, this episode is going to resonate so deeply. Let's dive in. Nikki, would you take a moment and introduce yourself?
Hey, Christine. Thanks so much for having me on the podcast. Sure. So my name is Nikki. By day, I work in ed tech. By night, I do Reiki and readings. So I started this journey about 12 years ago. I got certified in Reiki, and about 8 years in, I decided that it was time to take the jump, and I started doing different things. I taught some Reiki classes and have done various readings, and I'm just letting the path unfold the way it should and watching it unfold the way it should, and also meeting a ton of amazing people along the way, like yourself.
Yes, I have to say I have been to a few of your workshops and they are one of my favorites. They're always so good and just so beautiful, and I learn so much, and the energy is always literally amazing.
That's so sweet of you to say.
So I'm really kind of curious. Everyone has their origin story. How did you become aware of your spiritual gifts?
This is a really great question. So I think when I was little, I can pinpoint a moment in time. And when people ask me this question, I remember specifically this one pinpoint in time. I was in second grade and we were at my mom's friend's daughter's communion at a Chinese buffet in Freehold. We went there often. I loved that buffet actually. And there was a woman, and I could still picture her in my mind and what she was wearing, and picture in my mind what I was wearing. And she came up to my mom. My mom knew her. I think it was her friend's friend. And she was telling my mom about how she just got attuned to Reiki, and she was doing Reiki on her son. Her son had an ear infection, and her son seemed to react well to it, and it helped his ear infection. And I remember in that moment of time, her saying, I was giving my son Reiki and hearing that word Reiki and saying, I'm going to do that one day. So as the years progressed, I was always super into like tarot cards and readings. And it was very normal in my house to go to readings. My mom took my sister and I frequently to go see psychics and everything. So it was always something I was interested in and thought it was fun. But the teenager years, a lot of people have that like break where they're just a teenager and living life on their terms. And then when I was 20, this was 2011, I was going through a heartbreak, my first heartbreak. Everyone can relate to that. And I was in my apartment in college and I woke up from a dream and it was kind of like just a random night. I remember waking up the next morning and I had this dream where there were angels floating over my body and they said all of these things to me. And they said, when you wake up, you're not going to remember any of this, but you will in time. Like the path will unfold. So I was like, huh. I texted my mom and my sister and like a few of my friends, and I was like, I just had this wild dream. Like, because you wake up and you're like, what was that? Did I make that up? So fast forward now to 2013. I was up in Providence, Rhode Island. There's this woman, Sherry. Her business name was Spirit of Agape. She was an angel, a total blessing in my life at that time. So I met her through Natural Awakenings magazine. She did like meditations and things at her house, and she was just an angel. She's the one who really was like my first like handheld into it, but it was short-lived. It was only a couple of months and then I was graduating. So at that point I had a second dream where the angels came to me and they told me that I was always protected and that I didn't need to worry about opening up to my gifts because I'm always protected. So after that experience, I came home from college and in 2014, and I was attuned to Reiki, and then I kind of just like kicked off from there. So I was 22, about to be 23 when I got attuned to Reiki, and the path has just unraveled pretty eloquently from there. There have been years in between where I haven't done much, but I would say consistently in the past 5 years, I think 2020 cracked open a lot more people. I think it realigned me back onto my path. And I think it realigned a lot of people onto their path or redirected them to be on the path that they were supposed to be on. From there, I just started to really dive into all of this, doing more work on myself, and then got to a point where I realized, you know what? I think that I can help other people. So now here I am.
I think there's so much more to an authentic light worker, like a true light worker's mission, soul's calling is to help others. I want to backtrack for a moment. I am curious, when you had your first dream and it was around the time that you had experienced your first heartbreak, do you find that that happens? I feel like if I'm in a real bad slump or going through something really, really difficult and you ask for help, I feel like I get downloads and messages when I'm dreaming. I'm just kind of curious if that's how it was for you or if it just happened to be around at the same time.
I definitely was not seeking it. I remember being completely sidetracked by that dream, but also not totally surprised because I knew that my path was always going to come to a head and align with where I'm at today. I think that with heartbreak, so any heartbreak, whether it's death or the loss of a relationship, a friendship, a job, a house, anything, there's always grief. And the opposite of grief is love. And I think that that love in grief cracks us open. So there could have been a little bit of heart opening and expanding that happened, but I also think that if you can think back to 2012 when the whole like Mayan calendar changed and like everyone was like, that was definitely I think what they were really preparing me for, to get on track for the next wave of light workers to be born. And that really came online in 2012. And I think a lot of people listening, and I'm sure you included, we all can relate to like that time period where I think a lot of us started coming online in 2011, 12, 13, 14. So I think it was more in alignment with that and less in alignment with the actual grief.
It's funny that you mentioned that because nothing is ever not coincidental. I literally just saw a conversation this week in a spiritual community that was talking about what you just said, like the different years that like the spiritual community was coming more online, and 2012 was definitely brought up. So this was literally just a few days ago. So it's so, again, ironic that you mentioned it. It's just like confirmation. It's like this is a sign of synchronicity.
Definitely. And it wasn't just myself coming online. I know that from speaking to other people, and I had a friend in college too. He was my only other friend who we were having a shared experience that I was already friends with, not me seeking out spirituality classes or mentors or anything. So him and I would have these like really deep esoteric conversations like in the park and walking, and he was the only one, and like we would have these wild conversations, and they were so good and they were so juicy, and I wasn't having them with anyone else.
I had this best friend, and we would have the wildest conversations about like trying to figure out the meaning of life and angels and signs and how did we come to existence if there was nothing, how can something occur, like the deep
Mhm.
conversations that like spiral deep into the night and you remember them forever. And here you are like 30 years later. I met with her over the summer and we were like, we still don't have the answers.
We even want the answers though. Like, do we even want them? I feel like I've gotten to a point where I don't have it all figured out and I don't want to. And I have really been trying to connect to that past version of myself and trying to like integrate almost. And I don't know exactly what I'm doing. And maybe other people are having this experience too right now where I'm connecting with the past version of myself, but a happy version of that, like, when you're 22 and you're like just graduating with your bachelor's degree and the world is your oyster and you're so excited and you don't know what is going to unfold for you and you don't know what's going to be put in your path and you don't really know who your partner is going to be, or maybe you do. I didn't know that I was going to marry my husband and I didn't even know him. I didn't know where I was going to live, what kind of job I was going to have. And then you're here. And it's like, what's here?
Yeah, just a temporary pause,
Yes.
really.
But just connecting with that like past version of yourself, of the curiosity of when you're younger,
Yeah, the possibilities that lay ahead.
possibilities that I
Yeah.
feel like as we get into our 30s and 40s and older, like, I don't know, we get like jaded almost. Like being an adult jades you.
And even pressure and timelines that you create for yourself. So I went through like a morning almost when I want to say I was like 38. I had like a total meltdown because in my mind, I had imagined that I would have my own business by 35. I was going to be so successful. I would be my own boss, etc. So then when I was like still in the classroom, I literally had like a breakdown. I was like, I failed my own timeline and I beat myself up. And then in retrospect, I'm like, that was just so silly. I should have just enjoyed where I was and enjoyed the journey and the ride.
100%. The journey is like all the fun. I was just having this conversation with someone about how when we have expectations, they're almost always going to lead to resentment. Resentment to ourselves, resentment to others, because they're not realistic.
So let's shift to a deeper conversation. You are a master at pulling cards and tapping into energy. And I know that you pulled a few cards before we hit record. And I'm really curious to hear what the reading has in store for the collective listening in.
I actually pulled some cards from Becca Campbell's Rose Oracle deck. I wanted to get a feel for what was going to come in tonight. And the first two cards that I pulled were around the Great Mother and the Child Within, which is ironic because that's what we did our circle on, connecting with the Great Mother. And it's been a theme for basically all of 2025. I'm finding that a lot of us are really starting to like remother ourselves and turning to whether that be Mother Mary or Sophia or Mother Earth and leaning into that frequency and love to catalyst basically our creation. So the one card that I pulled, Whispers of Mother Earth, creativity, ideas, inspiration, artist, writer, channel. And when I asked for a clarifying card on that, The second card I pulled was the Great Mother, surrender to the mystery, fall into her arms. So the two of those cards together, energetically, I'm thinking that what's going to happen over the next 6 weeks as we prepare for the new year and Yule is that we're going to, as a collective society, be sitting in the womb of the mother. So this is definitely aligning with the frequency of Earth and Yule and the time of winter, but also diving deeper into we're all being given this opportunity. And this is just my own intuition of what I'm feeling into is that we're all being given this opportunity right now to dive deeper into our creation. And by diving deeper into our creation, we're tapping into the creator, and that is Sophia, which is the godlike energy. It's the feminine aspect of godlike energy. And she will be basically helping us to rebirth ourselves. And from what my understanding is with my own conversations with my guides, is that we're going to be integrating this new energy and we're going to be integrating it for the next 6 months. So through June to the summer solstice, that's what's in alignment, where we're going to then be stepping onto a new timeline.
So you think by June 2026, we're stepping into a new timeline in general?
I think we're always stepping into new timelines, but I think that collectively we'll be stepping into another timeline, a new one. There'll be another shift where all of us will consciously know there was a shift. The last shift was probably May or June of 2025. And I remember like walking outside and everything was so vivid to me. And it only lasted like a week. And then it was like back on to
Feeling normal.
feeling normal.
Yeah.
I remember everything was so vivid and like the world looked different and not in a bad way. And it wasn't scary, but the world looked different and it felt different. And then it was like, okay, back to normal. I think that we're going to be shifting to a new timeline of allowing more energy to infiltrate our being if we choose to accept that. I think that more and more people are going to choose to accept it because I think people are in pain and in suffering. So I'm hoping, fingers crossed, that more people will choose consciously to accept to hold a new frequency in their body so that we can continue with not only our own expansion, but Mother Earth's expansion as well. And I think you get to a point in your healing journey where you start thinking instead of I, everything is collective. So collectively, are we growing? Are we expanding? Are we continuing to move forward? And I'm going to say yes. I feel like we are as a society to moving forward, but the cards are also saying yes. So,
Well, that's always a plus when we have confirmation from the cards,
yeah, definitely.
from spirit. So going back into the energy of the mother womb, that's a place where symbolically we all felt so protected and safe and cared for. And, we were about to be birthed into the world, per se. And so, what does that mean energetically to go back into the mother's womb energy?
When I think of being in the Great Mother's womb and the times where I have consciously like sat in that energy, it's almost like a integration of past, present, and future. Everything is like one. Everything is in alignment in that space. And it's total healing, total support, total expansion, and remembering like our true essence and our divinity. So it's like constantly going back to that space and then rebirthing from that energy and bringing more of that like wholeness into your body each and every time you do it. Because it's not a practice that you do once and you're like, I'm rebirthed and I'm a new person. It's something that you go back to over and time again. And every time you rebirth yourself consciously with the Great Mother, I found that's when I have the deepest healings. So I definitely invite everybody, if you're interested in it. Rebecca Campbell is amazing, and she does a ton of meditations on the Great Mother, and she has like a whole song on it, and she's just phenomenal. And she really touches on Sophia and her energy and connecting to it and connecting to yourself and connecting to that essence within you. I just love her. She's amazing.
One, I have two of her decks actually right here on my desk as we're recording. I think that you really explained it well. When I visualize what you said of like all versions of ourselves are merging together, because that's really the true essence of who we are. We are all of those things in one. In our 3D reality, in our humanness, we don't feel like that, but at the core, we are everything all at once, and it's kind of really nice to tap into that energy. And when you go into that mother womb energy, you are rebirthing yourself in a way, because you're taking everything that you have already learned and putting it into place, and then coming from that new educated, experienced, healed place. So that's really powerful, and I love that energy and that opportunity also to be able to connect. And it's nice to know that there are people out there who are more versed in this than I would be, per se, like Rebecca Campbell.
I love her too because she's super authentic and she does have like quite a large following, but she's still real and authentic in who she is. And I love that about her. That I know every time I go to one of her meditations or attend one of her live calls, because she's in the UK, I know that she's going to show up authentically and she always has everyone's best interest in mind. I know that because you can feel it and like that resonance with her. So I just absolutely love her. I actually did an online meditation. She had a class at Omega that I couldn't get to. So I did the online version, and she did this meditation where we went back into the cave of creation, back into the womb of the mother, the great mother, and invited in the grandmothers. And if you know anything about her, she had this like experience where all of these women came to her in like a dream. And I'm probably not explaining it correctly, but you could read about it. It's really amazing. And from that experience, that's when she created like all of these decks and everything. But in that meditation, we basically just let go of everything: past trauma, like past life trauma, future expectations, and just became who we really are. And then when we came out of the meditation, we did this unbound ceremony where it's a chant of hers. It's called Unbound. And she was channeling Isis and screaming. I'll never forget this moment. Like, I literally want to go to one of her Unbound ceremonies live because I'm sure it was amazing. She was screaming, free your mother, like free your actual birth mother and free your grandmothers. So you're basically freeing your whole maternal line. And that was hands down like one of the most prolific experiences of my life. Like, I have never experienced anything ancestral, just amazing.
I have chills just thinking about that
Yeah.
experience, because that's so powerful. And I've been noticing that there are a lot more women out there that are wanting to connect with their femininity and the power that lays behind that, and to embody that, and to embody the creator energy within us. And on the other side of that is to also release and let go of anything that is stuck to us energetically that came through our mother ancestral line, because there's so much there in terms of forgiveness, right? Because you can only do so much. When I think back, and I had this conversation with my mom actually earlier this week, and I had said to her, I was looking at a picture and she was renewing her wedding vows. And I was like, Mom, how old were you here? And she was like, I was 36. And to think that, I was a senior in high school and I thought that like she had to have it all figured out. Like, you're an adult. Like, of course you have it all figured out. And now that I'm 42, I'm like, dang, like I have to go back and give her an apology, because I don't have it figured out yet. You know what I mean? Like you're literally just at every stage of your life doing your best. But as a kid or even a teenager, you think that they have it all figured out. And then you get mad when they don't give you the answer or response that you need growing up. And then to become an adult and realize that they were just doing the best with what they had and what they could. I think that's so valuable in sending forgiveness and letting go of any anger or resentment that has built up through the ancestral lines, whether it's your mother's side or your father's side. Like everyone has baggage and obstacles to overcome because that's part of life. And they say like our DNA and genetics and coding actually carries that with us. So I love that when you said that during that ritual, you asked to remove all of that. That's pretty powerful.
It felt almost like we were cave women, and we were, all of us, even being online, like it was so profound, and the energy was so, I can't even put words to it, honestly. That's how like life-changing it was. I can only imagine what it was like being in the room with everyone. I think there's probably like a couple hundred women there. And I remember when it was over, literally having this thought, like, I'm not the same person. And I think that's probably one of the only times in my life where after a ritual and ceremony, I was like, I'm not the same person. I am different now. Things shifted. And it was just amazing. But you don't even have to go to her online workshops. Look up her Unbound chant and just connect with the essence of letting go and moving forward. And now is literally the perfect time to do it because we're going into winter and we're going to be hibernating and going deep into the earth to incubate. We're going to basically be pausing and stopping and letting go.
Yeah, letting go and making space for new, what's coming in, energy and excitement around a new year. And is it a 1 year coming up?
I think we were just in a nine. So yeah, we're going back into a one.
Yeah, so I think that's like a great year for new beginnings and bringing things to life. So it all makes sense. I am curious as to how you got onto your Reiki journey. I know that you mentioned that whenever you heard the word, it kind of stuck out to you. When you're giving a Reiki session, walk me through what that looks like. Do you connect with your guides? Do you connect with the person who's lying on your table's guides? Do your angels come in? Like, what does that experience look like for you?
The experience definitely looks different with each person that shows up on the table. And also in how much resistance the other person is in. I always find that whenever I do a session, the first 10 to 15 minutes, if the person, everyone's going to be in resistance for the most part, especially like if you've been out all day, there's just like energetic clashing. And maybe stuff that's not even the person coming in. So like it's always like a quick aura clear and then a grounding always, and then just intuitively leading the session without any expectations. So I always work with the angels and my guides and their guides and whatever goddesses show up. I just kind of let it be like an open playing field, allowing whoever to show up that wants to show up, but also being like curious of, being a healer can be daunting, but the more curious we are and the more we play with it, the more fun it can be. So always just allowing the other person to have the best experience they can.
And that really is different for everybody because some people come experienced and knowledgeable, and some people come with no knowledge and it's their first time and they might not even have heard that they have a spirit team. And so, yes, it really is truly different for each person. It's something like if you haven't had the experience yourself, it's really kind of hard to even comprehend. There are people that we jointly know that if they were to explain something and we haven't experienced it ourselves, it's kind of like you can imagine it, but you really don't get it until you experience it yourself.
If you don't have integrity in this work and come from a heart centered space, you're doing a huge disservice to yourself and the other person. This isn't like a space where you want to bring ego in, and not saying that ego has to be 100% eliminated because we're human having this experience and we all have ego. It's part of the human experience. But you always want to have the other person's best intentions in mind. If you don't, then you don't have really any business being a healer, because there's like a purity to this and you want to always keep the innocence to the work.
I totally agree with what you're saying. It's really important. And I think that's why it does take some time for people to trust healers and whatnot, because sometimes there are people, unfortunately, out there who aren't always acting out of integrity and innocence. They might be looking just to make money in any way that they can. And that's really unfortunate. But I think that's also a testament to someone's intuition. You know what I mean? Like sometimes you go in for a reading or something and you immediately can sense whether or not there's like authenticity and integrity there. And, sometimes you just get duped because, for instance, my mom and I went to this reader in this particular popular area, and we both, paid, and we both walked out of there like, that was a crock of baloney. Like they just have the system worked
Yeah.
out. It was a mother and daughter duo team. And I was like, I could have given you that reading for free. Like I learned nothing, you know what I mean? Then there's other times where you have a reading and you're like, there's no way possible that this person could have known that, or this person picked up right away on the energy of my grandmother. Like there are distinguishable things and what you would call evidence, right? Any mediumship teacher would teach you, give evidence. And so there are so many people out there that are gifted. And I, for one, love to expose more people to that, because there are so many of us who are seeking answers, guidance, direction, because life can be overwhelming. And so I, for one, love a good reading or a good tarot card pull and any insight, intuition, or guidance, because again, it's not telling you what's going to happen. It's telling you a possibility of what could happen based off of your current energy. And there's so many more factors to it, but it's not like, oh, that psychic was wrong. Well, you do have free will. And so that comes into play. And sometimes I teeter or totter with like giving away too much information also, because it can affect other people's opinions or judgments. Like if, for instance, you were to tell someone during a reading, you're not going to be successful in business school, and then they make that decision to not even try, like you've kind of really taken away someone's choice, someone's free will. So, I always say take what resonates and leave the rest behind, because unless you're talking to God himself, you're not going to necessarily get all the right answers, because part of life is figuring it out. Like you said, the journey, you know?
When you go for a reading, you always want to empower the other person, but as a participant, so if I'm going to go to a reading from someone, you always want to go from a grounded space, and you don't want to go from desperation, because if you go get a reading from desperation, and we've all been there, all of us, like I'm very guilty, have gotten many readings out of desperation when I was younger, you're going to hang on everything they say. So as a reader, it's super important to like read who you're reading, in a sense of like, how can I leave them feeling inspired and empowered in their decisions, to when they leave, they're not going to hang on every word I say, or I'm not going to leave them fragile and upset.
Yeah, totally. And I think that's also super important.
I also think that when you're doing energy work, whoever you're working on, it's always going to be smoother when you're both in like energetic alignment, whether that be giving a reading to someone or actually doing body work on someone or even friendships. If you're in energetic alignment with them, it's like magic, and it unravels as it should. And it's like free flowing and it's steady. But when you're not in energetic alignment with the person, there's like a clash to begin with. And then Not that it doesn't work or not that I don't believe in it. It's that it's just a little bit more uncomfortable.
Totally. Sometimes I've been to a reading where I'm like, this is a bad energetic mix.
Yeah, I totally agree. I've even read people where I'm like, that was not a good energetic mix.
That makes
I
sense.
hope they had a good reading because like I definitely have given readings where I'm like, ooh, that wasn't my
Well,
best.
well, because also you never know if you're, for instance, giving readings at a psychic fair or something, you actually don't know who's going to walk in through the door. You're going to have some people that want to just come to be a skeptic. And as someone who's attuned to energy, you can kind of, I don't know, sometimes they think they're hiding, but you can kind of look at someone and be like, I know your intentions are not pure here. You're kind of coming just to be like a heckler. And that's in any case. That's what I'm saying. You can get someone who, like, they're not ready or they're not in alignment. Having a spiritual space or a spiritual practice, you're not always going to get someone that is really there for the right reasons.
Well, I'm thinking too of like people I've given readings to at events, and I'm thinking about like most of them have been a total pleasure.
Hmm.
Absolutely have loved reading them, but there's been maybe a handful of people where I'm like, they're skeptical. And that's okay though. It's always going to happen. There's always going to be someone who's skeptical.
Yeah, yeah, I agree.
Let me ask you something. Have you always been taken care of?
No. What do you mean?
Like, have you always had enough?
That's a very deep question in regards to, I feel like there's so many layers. I mean, if you mean emotionally, financially, like what, give me more.
In life, have you always had enough? Have
No.
you ever truly been in lack?
I mean, listen, I feel like as long as I have air in my lungs, then I have. But you're also talking to someone who has been through depression and anxiety and who came from, a home that would have to shop at thrift stores and go to food pantries. So that's a hard question for me to say yes to.
In that moment, did you have what you needed?
Yes, I've never been homeless or on the streets or never not had food.
Okay, so where is the actual fear coming from? And this is something I play with myself too when I think about it, because it's like stability at our root. This is a core belief rooted in like deep human subconscious and psyche of stability and safety. So I'm asking you, have you always had what you needed? Maybe you wanted Michael Kors and you had to go to the thrift store, but you were dressed. You weren't naked in class. You had shoes on. Maybe they weren't new, but you had shoes on. So, did you always have enough?
Yes, in this lifetime. And I'm laughing because do you remember, and you're a little bit younger than me, but back in the day, Vans, those shoes used to be really cool. And I had to get the knockoffs from Kmart. And then, like, they were, made fun of, called the Kmart kickers because I couldn't afford the real thing. But what I'm thinking while you're saying all of this is this fear could be coming from a past life. I feel like I lived in Ireland during like the potato famine. So I feel like there was a time in my past life where I literally had close to nothing.
That's where a lot of instability comes from past life because there was like famine, disease. Like if you lived past 45, 200 years ago, you were lucky. Like when I read about people who lived to 90 in the 1700s, bless them. Truly bless them because if you weren't taken out by a disease, a plague, scarlet fever, like people died
Yeah.
as infants in their 30s and 40s, the wars, you were dead. So I think a lot of this comes from instability in the patriarch. So
Yeah.
this is, see, we're gonna have a full circle moment here. I love this. That's why it's so important to connect with that feminine consciousness because we've been living in an imbalanced masculine society for so long. There's no reason why there's famine in 2025. There's no reason why there's people who are homeless in 2025. We have the ability and the infrastructure to support this basic human need. And I'm hopeful we're moving into a society of more nurture, more compassion, more resources for people, not looking at people who are less than us from a place of fear. That's really what it is. When we look at people who are homeless, it's like us having our own fear come up of that instability. So, how can we look at people through the lens of compassion? So, there's our full circle moment of the feminine consciousness coming online, but it has been coming online. This has been a hot topic for decades at this point. And it's a slow process and a slow integration. And I'm hopeful that we'll see some major changes in our lifetime, but I know that your children will definitely see it, especially your daughter, because she's still so little. So she could have 80 years from now. She could see so much. So I'm hopeful.
That makes me really happy to hear that. And also, I don't know if you noticed, like, oh my God, something shifted in me when you said that because I literally wanted to start crying because there is no reason why anyone has to live like that. And homelessness and poverty and thinking about children and anyone out there really that doesn't have access to clean water and food and all of that, like, really kind of keeps me
It's a basic human right.
it keeps me awake at night. And so when you were saying, and this is just a side note, yes, I would love to be a millionaire because one of my goals is to give. And even Mother Teresa says you need a checkbook to change the world. And so that's one of my aspirations is to become successful, not to be, and that's a whole nother limiting belief and all that, but like, not to be greedy, but to have the capabilities to give to things that are way beyond me. I want to help the collective rise. Everyone should have the basic human needs. And I love that you mentioned that awareness because as much as that plagues me and keeps me up at night, it's hard for me to look a less fortunate person on the street in the eyes. Why is that? Is it because I've been there and I recognize that hurt? I wonder. I'm just curious. Like I'm having my own inner dialogue here.
I think it's fear. When we look at someone on the street and they are homeless for whatever reason, I think it's fear of that could be us. And I find a lot of like that's how the human brain works. So, what's the first question you ask when someone dies?
How did they die?
Why?
Because I want to avoid that way.
Exactly. So I think that that's just how our human brain works.
Yeah.
You look at someone like who has less or is sick or is terminal or whatever it is, and we say, how can we avoid that? That is fearful. I'm afraid of that. How can I avoid that?
100%.
So it's almost like we have to open our hearts with compassion and love to be able to move through that. It's not easy. It's definitely
Not
not.
easy. Yeah. I mean, I always send, I actually do my own thing. I send healing energy, love, and light, and say a prayer for anyone that I come across that is less fortunate in any way. Do you know what I mean? It could be home, food, stability, it could be emotional comfort, love, support. Like it's so wild to think that we're all wired for something bigger, right? We're all here for a reason and a purpose. And I think we're at different levels of evolution and whatnot. There's so much more to explore and understand in regards to the why behind why we're all here.
I'm going to ask you one more question. So, if I can look at society from this point and all the way in the past, the biggest way to keep people under control is through fear and manipulation and to take away their stability. So, this is like when we talk about this, Christine, this is like a deep rooted belief. This is a collective belief that 99.9% of us are inhabiting in our cells. And people who are successful are also having these fears. It just might not be as loud. And there's like that 0.1%, the billionaires who they have so much wealth, it's not a problem and it's generational. So their whole bloodline is taken care of. So at our core belief of stability, imagine what we could be. Like if we all felt stable, like taken care of and supported fully, imagine what our potential as humans could be.
It would be limitless.
Limitless.
Yep.
Completely limitless.
I think that's why so many of us light workers came to incarnate at this time, because it's like darkness fighting the light.
People are definitely waking up.
Well, I think the light's winning, and I'm always going to believe that. Like I have to, because without hope, what do you have?
I think that there's other planets that are mimicking, mirroring Earth's experience. So, like, this is a whole nother conversation. We could have a whole nother podcast on this. But if I were to think about Earth's experience, I believe that there are at least one other planet mirroring Earth's. Because if you think about it from like a balance standpoint, there always has to be like a mirror. So what's mirroring Mother Earth? If we're all mirroring each other, what's mirroring Mother Earth? There has to be another something.
That's going to be my 3 a.m.
That,
topic tonight.
it's just wild. I'm not gonna go down that rabbit hole.
Yeah, yeah. It's like Alice in the Wonderland and the Looking Glass. Like once you start that journey, it can get real crazy. All right, so we had the full circle. I love how we didn't even plan that and it all came together. There's no surprise there. If you were to leave our audience with any last words of wisdom or advice or one big takeaway, what would that be?
To be yourself, to show up and just be yourself.
I love that, because at the end of the day, everybody else is taken.
So true. That's so true.
And on that note, thank you so much for being a guest today. It was a pleasure talking with you.
Thank you.
If you've been feeling the pull for deeper transformation, real, lasting change that starts from within, I'd love to invite you into transformational one-on-one coaching with me. This is where alignment becomes your new normal. You'll get 4 90-minute sessions at an introductory offer of $600, designed to help you release what's holding you back, reconnect with your truth, and step into the next version of yourself, fully and unapologetically. You can book your sessions through the link in my bio. Just tap my link tree to get started. Your next breakthrough is closer than you think, and I'd love to be a part of your journey.